Peter Yee.
And I'm Monica Agrawal.
We're here today to talk about artificial intelligence in medicine and related topics. With the future of using LLMs and applying it to clinical medicine and having physicians use something like that, what are some other kind of caveats or warnings that you would want to inform people about?
Yeah, so I think these models do have different biases because they've been trained on, largely portions of the internet. So that's, I think, one. And we know that bias is also ingrained in medicine. And this is something that can be propagated by these models. I think other things are the fact that, as you well know, medical knowledge itself is shifting.
Mm,
So it might have, ingested an article from 10 years ago, and that might no longer be kind of the prevailing. But a lot of the time, it's not explicitly, taught or trained to kind of think about that temporality. So there can kind of be a mismatch there
mm,
as well.
mm.
Um,
And then we hear a lot about, I guess, hallucinations. Is that something that's applicable to large language models and how it's used?
Yeah, so hallucinations are essentially when the model is, producing, generating text, and that text doesn't exactly match, might not, match the grounding of an electronic health record, say. So it's sort of inferring facts. So, one example where this might occur, and sometimes this can be considered benign, is, maybe a note says that the patient is taking metformin, and then the model assumes that the patient has type 2 diabetes. Well, that's pretty likely because that's the number one indication for metformin. It's not
Yeah.
the only reason. So it can sort of sometimes try to do these inferences that might be likely, but not necessarily always true.
Mm, okay. And is there anything else that you would just kind of put out there as a potential caveat that might be seen in LLMs?
Yeah, so I think one is that there are various mitigations for some of these issues. So it's not that there are not ways we can sort of overcome these. And it's a pretty active area of research right now in the computer science and clinical natural language processing community. Um, and then I think maybe one thing I kind of want to talk about is just kind of the concept of automation bias.
Hmm.
And this is what occurs where if you have portions of your pipeline that become automated, so whether that's writing patient instructions or something else, you might there have been various studies that shown this both in the medical domain and otherwise, that clinicians might not notice once they've kind of used something over and over again because it
Okay,
becomes
yeah.
easy to be susceptible. So I think that's kind of an active area of
Yeah.
research, something we should be thinking about.
Yeah, that makes sense. So one more time, can you explain what automation bias is again?
Yeah, so automation bias is essentially where if a portion of a workflow becomes automated, you might not, even if you have a person kind of manually reviewing it, they might not notice an error in the way that they would if they were doing it by scratch themselves. And this is something that's been seen in the past in medicine, not with large language models specifically, but kind of, I think it was maybe EEG or EKG interpretation a while back where, um, cognitively, it's hard to sort of, you don't necessarily treat it the same way if you have automation as otherwise. So I think there's kind of interesting human computer interaction
Yeah.
questions there of
Hmm.
what's the best way to sort of integrate safely.
Yeah. So something that could potentially save time and make, I guess, a job easier for a clinician could definitely be prone to something like automation bias.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.